pretty hard to genre yourself, I think, because you never want to give someone the wrong idea. When you say funk music, I'll put an idea in your head that might not be exactly what I'm trying to communicate. My main influences are a lot of funk music, progressive rock, dad music like 70s, rock and roll, R&B, and that music is fun and it reminds me of when I was most inspired in life. I think that inspiration is something you can't spark on purpose, but it's something that we all need to create things, really. I started playing guitar when I was 7 or 8. It's like the main expression tool I've had. Music is the language that we use to communicate emotions better than words can. I think that guitar spoke to me as the instrument that could do that most concisely at the time that I was first starting to play.
Hands up, hands up! My name is Moses, my friends call me Prophet.
Yes, sir.
At around 4th grade, I started playing violin, and around 5th grade, I started playing drums. And so I was very serious about them. I took music lessons, I was in orchestra, and I felt like I always had to make music at some form growing up. And so going from violin and drums to rap wasn't a very big gap. I just felt like I was making music in a different form, and all the same things I learned carried over pretty smoothly. So a prophet is derived from my real name, Moses, and I didn't want to be like Lil Drug Money. I didn't want to be a lean Lil Zed. I didn't want to have that kind of persona because that's not really true to who I am. And I think that I wanted something as close to my real name as possible without literally being my name. If you look very closely now, I'm wearing a floral button-up. I'm not trying to be a thug. I don't think that's ever been my brand. And I don't present myself as being a gangster. That's never been me. And for people who that's very real for, I have all the respect in the world for that. But I just have a little bit of a different self-image, so I think that expresses itself in the way I make music and the way I present myself. I grew up in the Northeast, just a couple hours from Boston. You don't hear about a huge main rapper. You hear about people from the South. You hear about people from the West Coast. And it's a little more isolated, but I think that gave me an opportunity to try some things that were out of the box. I think that when I started doing things the way I do now, no, I wouldn't say unique. There are still people that do it, but it's far less prevalent than in a lot of other places. So up to the point where I got to Boston, I'd only ever played instrumental music. And I never really considered making hip hop myself because I didn't have any friends who did that. And so coming here, my very best friend introduced me to this form of music I'm doing now. I would say I'm hip hop. I'd say rap, hip hop. I'm not too stingy with the titles. I find it's a little bit limiting sometimes to get locked down, but I do like to branch out in terms of style. So if you say hip hop or rap, I'm not mad, anything like that. Having some type of instrumental background can be a big benefit to a hip-hop artist, can be a big benefit to any artist. You don't have to play an instrument, you don't have to have a background by any means, because there are there's a huge amount of very talented people who have no background in music and they do great. But I'm very fortunate to have that background for myself. And so I hope that the way I organize songs, the way I present the music, and the way I organize, in particular, rhythm, because rap stands for rhythm and poetry, the way I express my rhythm is very much affected by my musical background, and I hope that shows through when people listen to it. In the future, musically, I hope to expand what I'm doing now. I want to incorporate more of that classical violin background, more of the drum background. I've spent a few months learning how to produce, and so I hope to incorporate that as well. And generally, I just want to get better. I just want to advance. I just want to grow. I want to get even weirder with all my vocals, weirder with all my flows, and make my sound as unique and as hard-hitting as it can possibly be.
Heart in my head. Helpless. Ooh.
grad, which lo and behold, I still teach out of. I think it's a staple of the music scene in Boston. And getting gigs when I first moved to Boston was definitely tricky. I was part of the Berkeley community, and in itself, the Berkeley community, I think, is kind of a little bit of a bubble. Getting outside of that, within the actual music scene and the Boston community, is a little tricky. So I was playing at some small clubs and stuff. Venues want to see that you can bring people, and as a freshman who just moved to Boston to play music, I couldn't really bring people out. I didn't really know anyone yet, so yeah, it's tricky.
Think you took mine in the blink of an eye.
I'd had written all these songs and was performing a lot with Josh, my drummer, and then was dating Charlie. But as soon as he started to play bass with me, we started collaborating a little bit more on the music, and it just kind of turned into this like really tangible sonic style of its own. Matt Pfeiffer, who is producing the next record too, he approached me and was like, I'm ready to start working on another passion project. And we booked 3 days flat at the Record Co. and just sort of holed up in our little loop art world and tracked everything as fast as we could. And it was a really big step forward for me. My, first real artist statement as Aubrey Haddard, like under my own name. And it feels like it was so long ago, like it feels like it's evolved so much since then, but it really was this huge step forward when we did put it out there. Yeah.
It be like, damned if I do, or like, damned if I don't. In the suit, in the blue coupe, in the do-rag, new boots on, hill nigga coat.
So I got my nickname from playing basketball at Washington Park. I didn't give it to myself necessarily. I actually hated it originally because I've always been short and chunky. So, but I was good at ball. Oh, I thought I was. If you earn a nickname, it's kind of like an embrace. And so they would call me Oompa Loompa baby. You can't lob a pass saying that much. So it just ended up being Oompa. Like it just kind of followed me forever, and I just embraced it. And it was, yeah, it's been my name for the last, how old am I? 16 years.
Yeah. Why you always acting up in front of company? Why you always thinking you could come with me? Why you always wanna come to comfort me? Do you think the games you run is comforting?
I wrote battle raps for a long time. I would rewrite my favorite artists' songs, and I would like take out a word here, take out a phrase here, fill in my own until I learned how to kind of do that on my own. And we would do that a lot. And I put it away. I started to write poems in high school. And when I got back to college, I was like, man, I really miss rap. And then I like discovered that you can kind of do music. You can find music out in the universe, like, whoa, concept. And then start putting them together and figuring out what I liked and like using my influence from R&B and soul and funk and trying to like fuse them together. I listen to something, it tells me what it wants to be, and I'm like, cool. That's what you want to be? We're going to talk about that. Like, that's what we're going to be.
In my head, making me feel small, take up too much space, telling me you won't be gone and that's my place. Tell me that I'm good for lost, my life's a waste. Pinch my cheeks, stab my waist, and ask me how I'm gaining so much weight. You don't even want you at this rate, you say, but if I let you can take my place. Some family chosen, some chosen for you. I wish you go to hell, you make me go through. Man, I hate you and your shadow lurking, paddle boating everywhere I might be joyful.
I think I exist at multiple different intersections, and I think it's important for me to like always be mindful of how I represent. I saw like two poets who were like black, masculine, and queer all at the same time talk about what it meant to be in these bodies, and I was like, yo, that's like, I heard this phrase like, oh, representation matters, and I was like, oh, that's cool, that's real cool, that's what's up. And then I felt it and I was like, oh, this changes lives.
This for the black girls and the brown ones, for the never like the glass girls and the ratchets, to the hustlers and the hoes, busting table CEOs, to the trans women, pan women, gender not conform, to the women who persisted shopping in the men department when the world is just the normal. Tell the world you know you poppin'. Hey.
I want to be in the owning class. I've been in the submissive class my entire life. I've been in the asking class. I've been in the begging class. I've been in the quiet class. The whatever. I've been in that class my entire life, and I want to be in the class that gets to determine stuff. So I want to be able to buy some of my city back. So the album, November 3rd, is dedicated. So I lost my mom on November 3rd in 2009, and it's kind of like a dedication to her, and also to the moment that I decided like that I wasn't gonna let her passing and all the things that transpired afterwards dictate my future. I was thinking about like this meta moment of like she's in the picture and she's like just like probably playing spades and having a cigarette and drinking some L and having like all the homies around her, and like that was like how I remembered my mom most, is just like festive and joyous, like stage that reflection, to kind of just be a moment where I was like, I got you, like you passed the torch and here I am, and this, it's simple, but like it was just sort of this moment where I was like, wow, okay, like I'm becoming my mom.
So next, right now when this beat drops, jump. Yeah, I feel like Cole. I wanna be rich, wanna real quick, but I really wanna see myself. I feel like Cole. I gotta get my mama out the bricks, man. Gotta get my nephew off his soul. I feel like Cole. I don't want the same thing. Number one, every homie know my damn thing.
Biggest piece of advice I can give anybody is, one, work on your craft like all the time. Like, because at the end of the day, it doesn't matter what resources you don't have. If you're nice and you're dirty at what you do, people can't deny you.
And the best part about Boston is that you got Berkeley and lots of art schools. It's crazy dense with people who are of the same age with similar interests. That leads to just beautiful artist communities. The people who really thrive are those who are willing to collaborate and help each other. No matter how small your band is, you can play in front of people. There's places like art galleries where they'll basically let anyone play there. It's not like there's bars and then there's stadiums. There's no big leap in the middle. It's great because you can take steps. You feel almost closer to everyone, even bigger artists that come through. Maybe the disadvantage of having a bunch of schools in the area is that the whole population cycles every 4 years. Like, people are in and out.
I kind of made a pact with myself that Boston wasn't just going to be like this passing through moment in time for me, like so many other Berkeley kids it is, and I just kind of frowned upon that. I didn't really like that idea. So forming a few different projects in Boston opened some doors, going to as many shows as I could, networking with local musicians, and especially the people that had been here a long time, I think was really important in just sort of like learning the inner workings of the community. It gave me a lot more credibility when it came to my own project, so that when I did start it, I sort of got to hit the ground running.
Some of the best shows I've been to are people's basements. DIY is big because it's all we got. Like, all the funds from it come from however artists get their money to put back into themselves and to put back into the scene, and there's sort of like this economy of DIY stuff that fuels us all. Everything is somebody being like, okay, the city needs this, I'm gonna go ahead and do that. It needs a marketing agency, I'm gonna be that. It needs a talent agency, I'm gonna be that. It needs a venue, my living room is cool, And I think that that's real special in terms of like building community and stuff.
Performing is just something so fun and so cathartic to me. Going to those big venues, having so many people there, it's really great to have all that energy there, and I think it was really thanks. Me being there was part of it. Me being there with my act was part of it, but I'd say a big part of that were my friends who came out and the people who I didn't even know who decided they wanted to support it. And so I think it really was community-based. It's a big team effort, and I think that's the most gratifying part of performing.
There's a lot of broke people or people who don't have tons of money to just throw around every weekend going to clubs or whatever, so that's kind of another reason why the house show scene is big. Like, you pay $5, you're surrounded by great people, awesome music for a whole night. You'll have a show where there's like an indie band and then a hip-hop band and then maybe a punk band or something. So it draws a lot of different people into the same room.
I feel supported a lot of the time by other musicians and a lot of other people in the community. I do feel a little bit of stigma sometimes in that this community hasn't fully come to accept hip-hop in the way it's accepted a lot of other types of music. But for the artists within my genre and for those artists and genres that are compatible with my genre, I feel very supported. Everyone in this little sphere I'm in has been very supportive so far, so I'm happy to see that.
So getting my solo project off the ground was a lot easier, honestly, because I had done so many different projects in Boston already and met so many different people that as soon as I decided to do it, I already knew who I wanted my producer to be, who was like a local guy. I recorded at the Record Co., which is like my favorite place in the whole world, and it's like this hub of Boston music and culture and community. As soon as I put my mind and my ambition behind that solo project, Boston was like there to receive me.
I think it's really cool that we get to do things on our terms, which I think not a lot of people can say that they get to do that. You know, the industry or whatever has to look at the city and say, yo, why aren't we here yet? It's a smart business move to build here. So if I make enough noise with the people around me who are also doing music, then hopefully they'll be like, all right, this is the spot to be. So it's really hard to stay here. It's really hard. I love my city. It's really hard, but I'm trying to do it.
It just makes you feel like, what am I doing? I got to get out there and do more. Being around artistically driven people breeds artistic drive.
I was very inspired by doing music all day, every day with this like creative intention. So I got a lot out of it in that way, in that sense, and just like challenging myself to really like be immersive with my art. I still work with a lot of people that I met at Berkeley, and I'm really grateful for the experience.
At any point in time, I could be featuring at an open mic at like a cafe. Started like the Middle East and the Great Scott, and then like the Sinclair, and I was like, oh, I set goals every year to like, I have this list. I'm like, if I need to touch every single one, and I'm like down all but one, like just the Paradise Rock Clubs. Only one, I'm just saying.
I enjoyed playing at the Middle East. That was my favorite venue, playing in the downstairs, because it is really an intimate, closed environment that allows people to go crazy, to turn up a little bit, and do things that you may not do in a quote-unquote classier venue. I love playing the house parties. I love playing the smaller, grimy venues where people aren't very much concerned with their appearance. They're just concerned with having fun.
Boston was a great kind of playground to dig around in. Great place to cut your teeth, learning how to do that efficiently, you know? And it really helps to be surrounded by a bunch of other people who are trying to do the same thing.
I love Oompa. I don't know if you guys know Oompa, but we recently have done a few performances of some of her music, and I'm really hoping to collaborate with her more in the future. I think she is a brilliant mind, a brilliant artist.
I think ZoomX is dope in general because I think what ZoomX does for young people's expectations around what they can do as artists is incredible. I think growing up, I didn't know that it was something to take serious. Like, I didn't know that, you know, just because I love being an artist, or like I thought I could have loved being an artist, I didn't know that it was sustainable, and most people would tell you not to do that. And I think having a place like ZoomX that not only tells you that you can, but like provides you resources to be able to do that is super dope. And they kind of like always hold their word, you know, like I was here when I was a young person, and as an adult, they, you know, helped me get on tour. But then I'm coming back here to do a show with the young people who have been growing, you know, like every year. Like it's fire. And I think that having accessible music is like, I know it's not a right, but it's kind of like it's kind of up there. No, I think that it's important to like, if music is like it's a part of a cultural conversation, then I think people having access to that conversation is as important as the culture existing. So.
And even when they turned it off, gotta keep it going. Sing it out loud, sing it loud as you wanna. They wanna see you broken, so you gotta keep it going, man. You gotta keep it going. Hey.
I'm thankful, I'm grateful. Didn't promise us forever, but he made you. You lived in this life, makes wanna do